Good morning, morning everyone. Good afternoon to some of you. Thank you for joining this webinar. And I want to go ahead and introduce myself. My name is Bryan, and I work with RIEGL, and then pass it off to Bryan O'Neill to do the rest.
Good morning and afternoon, everybody. And if we've got folks from around the world, it may be a good night for some of you. I'm Bryan O'Neill. I'm the president of IAFSM. And thank you for joining what is the first of, we hope, many of our sponsor talks where we're giving our sponsors an opportunity to show what their product can do in the real world. So RIEGL has stepped up to be our first, so they're a guinea pig. So we're still figuring this out, but I did want to just take an opportunity to introduce Bryan Menendez a little bit. The first time I kind of was exposed to him was I watched the RIEGL presentation on the scanning of Alcatraz, which was really, really interesting. And then I was able to meet him at the IFSM conference in San Diego last year. And he does great work. I'm excited for this presentation. I think there may be a little taste of both Alcatraz and the IFSM conference in this presentation. So for those of you that are IFSM members, you know about our conferences. Those of you that are special guests of RIEGL, I encourage you to take a look at IFSM and potentially joining us. We have some outstanding conferences. We have a joint one coming up, and you can find information on our website that's actually taking place in the back lot of Universal Studios in California in August. And then our main joint conference with Acer will be in Boulder, Colorado next February. So please check out our website, aafsm.org. And hopefully we will see you at future things. And with that, I will turn it over to Bryan.
Thank you. Thanks, Bryan. And we also have William here from Omaha Police Department. He's a forensic manager over there, and he's been kind enough to join us as a panelist. So thanks, Will, for being here. I appreciate you spending some time with us. To get started, so this presentation is going to be about the 600i and sort of its applications in forensic laser scanning. So let's go ahead and get started. First with the agenda and kind of what I'm going to talk about. I'm going to start out by just going over the hardware capabilities of the 600i, and then I'm going to transition into how you would operate it in the field and try to get you an idea of what it's like to actually use the scanner. And then from there, we're going to touch on data processing and the software component of the RIEGL system. Following that with some project highlights, and then finally I'm going to go through the Q&A at the very end. I will encourage everyone to use the chat box in GoToMeeting to put in any questions you may have, and then at the very end I'll go back and try to answer all of those questions using the data that I have and things like that. And then also, if you want to wait till the end to send questions, that's also fine, but you can also just send them as you get them, and then I'll just catch up to everything at the end. So let's get started. This is what the 600i looks like. On the front side of the scanner, you have the beam exit window, and then below that we have 3 internal cameras that are taking pictures while you're scanning. And then on the other side of the scanner, you have the 7-inch touchscreen, as well as that green button that you see lit up, which is just used for starting and stopping scans, as well as turning on the scanner. On either side of the system, you see these kind of doors. Let me use the laser pointer here to show that. Oh, it doesn't really want to work now. But there's 2 doors on the side of the scanner where the batteries go inside. Each battery gives you about 90 minutes of scanning, so you get a total of 3 hours. Then there's also the quick release adapter on the bottom of the unit that quickly snaps the scanner on and off the tripod. The 600i is capable of doing 25-second scans at 6mm resolution with the images taken at the same time. 6mm resolution is about 1/8 of an inch. So it's a very high-res scan in a very short amount of time. The scanner is also capable of doing all of the data registration on board. I'm going to talk a little bit more about that later on, but just something to keep in mind. The scanner is also IP64, so it's splash proof and dust proof. So you can use the system in rainy environments and in dusty environments. You don't always get to choose a nice, convenient time when an accident happens and you have to pull this thing out. So it's very important that you can use a sensor in the rain. Max range on this system is exactly 1 kilometer, or about 3,300 feet. The scanner comes with 2 years of system warranty and a lifetime product support for all of our law enforcement users and forensic users. And finally, the last key point is, from our current law enforcement users, they're scanning most of their 2-car accidents in anywhere between 8 to 10 minutes, which is really quick. It's very fast, very important feature. You don't always want to be out in the road where, you know, people are maybe not slowing down when they should be, yielding to you. So it's very important that you get in and out of there and restore the flow of traffic as quickly as possible, which is something that we're really trying to achieve with this sensor. 600i is very versatile, so I just included these images to show that the scanner can really be placed in a ton of different positions or locations. So we had it on a bucket set up on the left-hand side when we were scanning Alcatraz, and also that spiral staircase, which is very tight and small, where really a tripod doesn't necessarily fit. And then the image on the top right is just there to show that the scanner doesn't have to be leveled in order to take a scan position. And then finally, in the bottom right, just an image to show that the 600i can be put underneath a vehicle or somewhere where maybe there's evidence that you want to scan, but you can't exactly get to with the scanner on a tripod. So the 600i is pretty easy to operate, and I'm going to walk you through a quick video. It's about 30 seconds long of just showing you how to capture a scan position and how to take data. So you just hit start, and the scanner takes this is a 25-second scan. The video is sped up, but in real time, it's 25 seconds. Once the scan is done, you get a preview. So this is kind of what it looks like in person. You just hit start, watch it spin. And then once it's done, all you have to do is pick up the sensor and move it to your next position and hit start again. It automatically realizes that you moved it. It automatically stitches that position to the next one. So it's pretty easy to do. And then the last thing that you're seeing in this video is the fine scanning feature, where you can actually make out a particular piece of evidence in your scan and do a high detailed scan of it. So in this case, what we're doing is we're scanning a key and a wallet that's on the ground, and we're scanning that at about 3 millimeters of resolution as opposed to the 6 millimeter that you're getting with the full 360 scan. Newer feature on the 600i is going to be the HDR images. So what is HDR? HDR is just the process of taking multiple images, different levels of brightness and contrast, and then combining them to get a realistic final photograph. So just to kind of illustrate that, this is a series of photos taken by the 600i. This is the first photo that the scanner took, which it's not really that bright outside. It was actually a really gloomy day, but the scanner purposely takes an overexposed image. Then it takes another image in the same spot that's a little bit less exposed. And this is more like what it looked like that day. It was very gloomy. And then it will take a third photo that's even darker. And then finally, it will combine those 3 photos to create one image that is just more accurately portrays what it looked like that day. So it's a really good feature for those times when you're in an environment where lighting is not ideal, and you don't maybe have a lot of sunlight and it's pretty dark. Utilizing HDR images is a great way to get a good photo still. So this is what a full scan looks like taken with HDR images. You have 2 settings. You can use either a narrow bracketing mode or a wide bracketing mode on the system. Narrow bracketing mode is more intended for an inside use case, and wide bracketing mode is more intended for outside. So I now talk more about registration. This is one of the 2 slides I have on registration, but the scanner does, again, register all of those scans for you. If you have your smartphone with you, you can scan a QR code that's on the back of the VZ-600i screen, and it'll actually take you to a map of what you've already collected. This is really useful for when you're out in the field and you want a quick way to look at what you've collected so far without actually having to pull out your laptop and take out the data from the scanner and process it. This is a great way to just see what you have. You can see which dark spots you have and kind of target those in future scans. Also, conveniently enough, it's just a web-hosted link that the 600i is hosting. So you can actually send the project map to anyone. You could send it to maybe someone that you have back at the office who wants to know how it's going, and you can send them this project map, and they can actually live see the changes and live see your scans as you're collecting data on here, which is pretty cool. RIEGL is a software that RIEGL has developed specifically for law enforcement because we wanted to try to streamline the workflow for you guys. We don't want to have all of these like crazy engineering tools kind of like distracting you from the key things that we find are most important for law enforcement. So we've created RIEGL, which keeps everything really simple for you. The workflows on the bottom there, really all you have to do is take your scans in the field, import them into the software. Registration is optional. You can register in the software, but again, the scanner registers for you. So that that step there can actually be skipped in the middle. Then you can colorize your scans using the photographs. And then finally, you can export those scans as a 2D plot, or you can actually just export the scan data. But the 2D plot export is nice. You can either export it as an image and print it out and give it to someone, or you can do a measurable PDF. The measurable PDF is something that I've really been pushing or sort of recommending to law enforcement units, because the cool thing about the measurable PDF is when the person you're giving it to opens it in Adobe, Adobe actually has measurement tools inside of the software where you can actually measure things directly from the PDF document, which is also a really cool feature. So what's data processing like in RIEGL? It's automatic and it's very simple. So there's a task list that you see on the right-hand side here that just shows you all of the different tasks you can do on a point cloud. And then you're simply just going to check off which ones you want to perform, and then the software will automatically perform those tasks. There's very little manual work being done. You can make adjustments to these individual tasks and sort of change them up a little bit. But for the most part, the standards we find are really successful for police departments, and RIEGL is kind of catered towards law enforcement. So all of these settings are kind of fine-tuned to what we see most police departments already using. All of the data is exportable in E57s or LAS and LAZ files. And then again, your 2D plots or diagrams can also be exported directly from the software. Registering scan position. So this is the last slide about registration, but I wanted to give you guys a visual of what this looks like. So step one, if you didn't register in the field, this is what an unregistered project or collection of scans would look like. They're all just kind of sitting on top of each other, oriented in different positions, and it's not usable at this point. Any measurements you make in this state are inaccurate. So our software deals with this in an automatic fashion where we go from scan position to scan position, looking for overlap and also using numerous different features that are on the 600i to register scans. So I've created a short video. You can just see what it looks like visually. So it starts from scan position 1, and then it works into scan position 2, and it just registers in that kind of sort of numerical fashion, starting from the first scan and ending at the last scan. So this is a pretty short project. It's only 7 scan positions, but it helps you get an idea of what registration is and how it works in our software. This is also what the scanner is doing, but when the scanner is doing it while you're in the field, you don't see this part of it. You only see this when you do it in our software. So you also kind of get an understanding of what's happening if you're out in the field collecting data. And it's almost done here. So yeah, scan position is the last, or scan position 7 is the last scan that we need to take. And then once that's done, you'll end up with a point cloud that looks like this, which obviously comparing it to the point cloud that's on the left to the point cloud that's on the right, there's a tremendous difference, right? Everything is now aligned properly and stitched together properly, so you can see features. You can tell it's a parking lot. You can see where the vehicle is in the middle and all the buildings and stuff. So this is, step one, sort of how you want to have your point clouds. You wouldn't want to deliver something that's unregistered ever. Mark moving objects is another really cool tool that's in our software that a lot of our users really like. It's always really difficult, especially during a really hectic and busy crash, to keep people out of your scans. In this example, this is from a conference, so there's just a ton of attendees that were walking around checking out the simulated crash, and you can't keep everyone out of your scan, so you need a method of cleaning people out sometimes. There's just no way around it. So we have an answer to that. We have a software tool that compares position to position and looks for objects that weren't in the same place. So typically, people will not stand still the whole time. Hopefully they move unless they're not working, and they're just standing still the whole time, which they shouldn't be. So the tool will go through and it will mark them for you. It won't actually go and delete them immediately, because there's a problem with just deleting data, because it could be evidence. So the software will mark it, and then it will move it out to a different point cloud. And so what I'm showing here is just the original state of the point cloud and then the marked points. And then once I've marked them, I can move them out, and then I have now I have a sort of cleaned point cloud, where now we've registered this. So that's step one. Cleaning it up a little bit now, we're starting to get more into the data processing side of things. This would be sort of step two. And now this is much better as a deliverable than obviously something like this. The next key feature that we have with the RIEGL sensor is the different view types. The 600i isn't just capturing intensity, it's also capturing a lot of different attributes, the main one being reflectivity. And reflectivity is an important thing, at least for us, when it comes to creating these view types, because different surfaces have different reflectivity values and reflect light differently, so they give you a different return, and we can filter by that. So just to try to illustrate that, looking at this first screenshot, you've got a top-down view of just an intersection here on the street. And, you can make out some features using the colorized view. You can see the street, the cars, and maybe some of the road work that has been done. But if I go into a reflectance view, I can actually start to see more clearly the work that has been done on this street over time, which is quite a bit, because the actual tar that they use to kind of fill in all those cracks reflects the light back differently than the surrounding asphalt. So you get a different type of return. And when we filter by that, you can actually see different features. Going one step further, we have a ton of different view types. So you can actually play around with those view types and get a view that makes it even clearer, where you can start to see things that really weren't that visible with the human eye and in the colorized data view. So how that relates to law enforcement is with tire marks. Tire marks are easier seen in this type of view. So this is a simulated crash from another conference, and you can sort of see some of the tire marks and things like that. But if I go through and use the reflectance view to view it, you can see it's much clearer in the reflectance view. I can actually see all the little markings on the ground. I can see a huge gash on the ground there that maybe I couldn't see before. And this can help you when you're trying to take measurements and find out where the original point of impact was, or where the car actually started braking. You're able to see in clearer detail where things are with these different types of views. So another new feature in our software is going to be the ability to edit your images in post-processing. You don't always, sometimes the operator will make a mistake and they won't take images that are good enough. They'll either be too dark or too bright sometimes. So we've added the capability to make adjustments to these photos. So you can now adjust the images and change their brightness, their contrast, and their saturation. So using this as an example, this is kind of, the photos still look pretty decent, but let's say they could be brighter. Here I've made just a few adjustments to those images, and you can see that they're much brighter, much more vibrant. So when you use those photos to colorize your point cloud, it's going to be a much better colorization now because you've edited the photos. The scanner and the software also have the ability to automatically blur faces and license plates. So in this example, I had the face blurring and license plate blurring enabled on the 600i. So when you collect the photos, immediately it will blur everything out. You can also, if you don't want to do that in the field and you want to choose to do that in the software, you can also do that in post-processing, which same tool, it just parses all of the data. It's using machine learning or AI to find where the faces and the license plates are. Next slide. Oh, sorry, let me see what's going on here because my computer is not going to the next slide. One second. If my computer froze here. Oh, yep, there it goes. Sorry about that. There we go. So next sort of software tool, and the last software tool, I think. Oh yeah, there's one more. Next software tool is going to be the 2D plots and measurements. There's really two main measurement tools in RISolve. You have the ability to make linear measurements. You just pick two different points, and the software will automatically tell you the distance between those 2 points. The scanner is accurate to about 3 millimeter, so these measurements are very reliable. And then there's also the arc measurement tool, which is shown on the right-hand side. You can just choose 3 points in a circular fashion, and the software will tell you the arc measurement of that, and then it'll also tell you the radius of the circle that you've chosen. RIPano is a software I'm probably going to show you. I'm going to veer off the PowerPoint for a second here and show you RIPano. But if you want to follow along or see RIPano, there's actually a demo version of it online. So if you have your phone and you want to scan the QR code, you can, and it'll take you to the web address where RIEGL's website is hosting a RIPano. You can also just Google RIEGL RIPano, and it'll probably be like the first or second Google link where you can go and see some of the RIPanos we have hosting online. But let me go here. So I have a RIPano I'm going to show you. Here we go. So this is how RIPano opens up when you first open it. It is a data viewer that RIEGL has developed. First thing it does is open up to a quick guide, so whoever you're sending this to can learn how to use the tool. RIPano exports from our software as just a folder with an executable inside that whoever you're sending this to can open up in a web browser. So the point of this is if you're trying to show someone data, but they don't have a point cloud processing software on the computer, or maybe they don't have a machine that can process LiDAR data, or they're just not familiar with working with LiDAR data, you can send them this, and it's a really simple way for them to engage with your data and look at your data and be able to see what you collected and kind of see the scene. So closing that, and I zoom in, you just get a top-down view of everything you've collected. And then you have individual scan position icons that you can click on, and it'll take you to the perspective of that scan position. So if I click on the very first scan here, I just have a POV of where the scanner was. All these people are black because I removed them from the data. And then you have the vehicle over there. But I can actually change the view type in RIPano and do either true color or do the actual camera view. So now I can see the actual camera there. And then I can also make measurements in here and do some other things too, but just for the sake of being quick, you can actually just make a point-to-point measurement in here as well. So there's a lot of different advantages to using RIPANO. Primarily, you're just being able to give your point cloud to someone who doesn't use it or isn't familiar with LiDAR data. And looking at this, I just want to show off the folder structure here. So this is how RIPANO exports. It's just a folder that's called RIPANO. And inside of that folder, you have these 4 files. So what you would do, what I always do when I want to send someone a RIPANO, is I just take the RIPANO folder and I put it in a flash drive and I give it to someone. All they have to do is plug the flash drive into their computer and double click on either the RIPANO for Windows or RIPANO for Mac OS, depending on what system they're using. And the RIPANO for Windows will just open up the RIPANO file just like that, and they can view the data. All this is using is your operating system to view it. So it's very cool, something to look at. And again, if you want to see it for yourself, you can go ahead and scan that QR code or just Google RIPANO RIEGL and it'll show up there. So this is the next couple of slides are just going to be spotlighting different projects that I've done and showcasing what, you know, a finished project from the 600i looks like. So this is the first crash that I'm going to show from IPTM. Oh, this video is kind of going pretty slow. See if maybe, okay, there we go. So it's just a truck hitting a mannequin. And what I'm going to show off here is just different view types, different measurement tools. So this is one of the reflectance views, and then going back to the true color view, just to look at certain things. You see the measurements there. This particular video is also made completely in the RIEGL software. So we have the ability to define a path for a camera to follow, and then you can record that path, and that's how I'm generating all of these videos. So this is all just using Solve, which is also a great way to show data. You could just download it, record it, download it as an MP3 video file and send it to someone, and then they can also walk through the data. So I've seen law enforcement, some of our law enforcement users actually just like, they'll scan something like maybe a break-in, and they'll actually take the camera and have it follow the path that the burglar would have taken to get into the house, let's say, and then how they escaped. So you can actually take your audience through like a walkthrough of how this person went through the scene and how the exact path they would have taken and what they may have seen, stuff like that, which is a pretty cool feature. This is an actual crash that was provided to me by one of our law enforcement drivers, by a drunk driver in a neighborhood. So he's driving down this road and then he crosses the median and crashes his car. Let's see what's going on here. So these videos aren't cooperating. Oh, that's interesting. Okay, well, fortunately, I have this data set on my computer. So instead of doing that video, I'll just show the data set on my computer. So this crash happened at night, and the agency that collected it didn't actually light the scene or anything. So there aren't any photos, but that's not a problem because you can still use the LiDAR data to show what the scene looked like. So I'm just going to quickly walk you all through what this looks like. So the driver was driving down this left lane, and they eventually sort of swerved off and through the median, and then they kind of turned around and ended up here. And this is where the car stopped at. And you can see the level of detail they were able to collect here with this tire and all of the kind of stuff sticking out of it, all of that damage. You can also see kind of all of this dirt that they kicked up. You can see the tire mark there on the ground. This was all 25-second scans. I believe the agency said they spent about 15 minutes collecting this. So it's pretty impressive what you can collect in just 15 minutes with the 600i. You can see all of the debris on the ground from the vehicle, all of the different crash. They were particularly interested in the spring that you see over here. that just like jumped out of the wheel well. So just to show kind of the range on this unit as well, if I bring in these scan positions, now you're able to see under each icon where each scan was taken. So the officer scanning this kind of just went down this and then through the median. But if I zoom out, you can actually see just how much data was collected just from those positions, because the scanner is able to go out in this setting about 1,000 feet. And you can also, unintentionally, but they, scanned the hell out of this McDonald's. Got really good data there. Probably went there after the crash. And yep, and even seeing that in the data view, changing that to true color, or I'm sorry, to single color, or wrong one. Let's do this. Let's do something like that. You can actually start to see the dirt more and kind of see all that data there. So let's go into the next project. This is from last year's IAFSM show. So we had a simulated burn on this wooden building over here. And then we also had a few small explosives set off in this berm in the back. And going through that, but man, these videos are not cooperating. Okay, so I'll do the same thing. I'll just bring up the data then, because I still have it on my computer. So what we'll do is we'll just see the actual data. There's no reason to show the video then. So this was the project. We kind of went ahead and scanned this burned building after it burned, after the fire. So you can kind of get a look at what that looks like. You can see these white sort of lines running through are actually the spots where the firefighters who put out the burn actually shot the soot with their hose, and it kind of made a clearing on it. So that's actually the shack underneath, and then all the black stuff is all the ash and the smoke that kind of settled against the wall there. And over here you have water, and it kind of trickled down over here. And then over on this side where they set off a few explosives, you can kind of see the little kind of holes left by the bombs, and this rock face that I scanned that looked pretty cool, so I collected some data on it. This data set, we also did a few long-range scans, so you can see where all the positions were, but we actually were able to get data all the way looking out and on this cell tower all the way back here. So the furthest return, I think, was several thousand feet. So if I take my measurement tool and just do a quick measurement here from here to here, I can see that return is about 1,300 feet from the system, which is a pretty far reach and is a cool thing to do. So going and changing this to one of the different view types that we have. I don't really like that one. Change this to probably something like that. That's better. So this one, I like to show this view type because you can actually see the difference in the water. So once a particular substance is wet, kind of like asphalt in this case, the reflective index of it changes, and you actually get a distinct return. So we can see here that the water actually, even though it's the same substance, this sort of asphalt or concrete pad, you can see that it's still shown differently just because of the way it was wet when we scanned it. And then you can also see here against the burned object, you can see some of the differences. The areas that have more kind of soot are like this bluish color, and then the areas where you can see that they sprayed the hose against start to become a different color. And that's it. I think that's the last video I have, so it shouldn't happen again. So talking about Alcatraz, this is one of the largest projects I had the opportunity to work on. I was able to sleep on the island in one of the jail cells for the 3 nights that I was working there. Or I'm sorry, the 2 nights I was working there, is 3 days. We scanned in about 16 work hours, over 600 scans inside the main jailhouse with the 600i. And then RIEGL also manufactures drone units. And we also flew a RIEGL drone and captured the entire island, which is what you see on the lower right-hand side. On this image on the there we go. This image on the left-hand side is the main jailhouse. The main jailhouse, if you include the basement, is 4 floors. There's an old Civil War era fort that's underneath the main jailhouse of Alcatraz, and then they actually built Alcatraz on top of that fort. So we were able to get down there and kind of get access to it and scan that, which was really cool. And then we went into the prison and scanned the top 3 floors as well. And then this image on the upper right-hand side is the cell block that we slept in. And I'll show some photos about that later. Just showing off the range again on the 600i, we were able to scan the city skyline of San Francisco from the island. So we never actually did any positions in the Fisherman's Wharf area down here. We actually everything was collected on Alcatraz Island, but we were able to do some long range scans across the bay and into the city. Just for fun, we thought it would make the project look cooler. So we went ahead and did that. This is kind of my sleeping arrangement when we were on the island. So we had a cell, they had a spring, like a sleeping pad, a sleeping bag. I brought a nightlight, a mosquito net, stuff like that. And then, yeah, this is kind of what the first night looked like, just me laying in bed here. And then this was the San Francisco skyline at night and in the morning. So it's a tremendous project. A lot of different entities got together to make this happen for the National Park Service. And we were able to digitize the entire island and kind of create a really accurate model for them that they're using to kind of evaluate the state of the prison and all the other buildings around and kind of make decisions on what they're going to do moving forward with it. A little bit about RIEGL USA. So we're headquartered in Winter Garden, Florida. This is the office. Everything we do is done here. We do support, service, and sales here. Our support team is a team of engineers. They're available 7 days a week from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. All of like calibrations and different repairs on units are also done at this facility. I want to take a second to shout out the IAFSM, which I know Bryan O'Neill already did, but it's an organization that a ton of different people from different backgrounds, military, law enforcement, engineering, and accident reconstructionists that get together to talk about metrology and different measurement tools that are used in forensics. The IAFSM is going to be part of the MCI law enforcement course or law enforcement conference that's going to be in Hollywood in the Universal Studios backlot. So we encourage people to go. It's during August 18th to the 22nd. The IAFSM is going to be hosting a basic laser scanning certification course there. So if you want to learn more about laser scanning, you want to get certified in laser scanning and take a course, this is a great thing to go to. And if you come, let me know. I'll be there, so I'll be happy to meet some of you. And then the second annual combined conference with the IAFSM and the Association of Crime Scene Reconstruction is also going to be kind of this year. It's technically next year, February 22nd to the 27th of 2026. It's going to be in Boulder, Colorado. You can get information on both conferences at the IAFSM website or the ACSR website. So if you're interested in going and you want to learn more about laser scanning and a lot of other crime scene reconstruction related technologies, you should come by. Boulder, Colorado is going to be beautiful that time of year. So, and this is my contact information. Thank you for paying attention and attending. If you have any extra questions or you want to shoot me a call or a text, my information is right there. And at this point, if you have any questions that you want to send into the chat, go ahead and do so now, and I can go back and sort of answer any questions. I have a ton of data on my computer, so if you want to see something specific in our software, you can go ahead and ask me, and I can open that up and show it to you instead of just talking about it, give you a visual of how that would work.
Bryan, thank you so much for doing this with IFSM. So I had a couple things I thought the audience might be interested in and stuff that I'm definitely interested in, impressed with in your technology
Sure.
while we're waiting for some questions, if you don't mind.
Yeah, go, of course, go for it.
So one of the things I love about what you presented here was the 2D deliverable option. I mean, it seems to me like that's a really nice barrier breaker for folks that have difficulty communicating what they're capturing in 3D and adopting it into investigative processes and all kinds of other things, as well as uh, the criminal justice system in general. Can you talk a little bit more about the 2D plot? It looks to me like it's deliverable from onboard in the field. Is that something that comes out of RIEGL as well afterwards in the computer?
Yeah, the project map that I mentioned over here is kind of a 2D plot. It's not really ideal, but you can use this when you're in the field to look at it. And then from RISolve, making the 2D plot is pretty easy. Once you have the registered point cloud, you can just use the 2D plot tool here, and it will automatically snap to this view. You can kind of position it wherever you want to position it. Any measurements that you take during the 2D plot tool. So if I go from like here to here, and I save that measurement, and then I create the 2D plot, the measurement stays in the 2D plot. So when you export this as a photograph or as that PDF document, all those measurements will be embedded in it. So then you just hit plot. The software will come up with this dialog box where you select the file type and you select where you want to save it, and you just save it. So yeah, it takes, literally seconds to use. It's pretty easy to do.
Yeah, I like it. And it looked like you don't have to be fully ortho, or you can go ortho to any point in the point cloud. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I saw you do a radius on a tire, right, or a diameter on a tire, on a wheel.
Correct. Yeah, you can do the 2D plot from really any point of view on the scanner. So if you're over here and say I want to take that arc, let's see for a second, I have it set to create a PDF report every time I create an arc. So it's doing that now.
It's probably a smart thing. Again, it's just easily adoptable by people, right? Everybody's familiar with PDF. Everybody's got a viewer for PDF. I think it's great.
Yep. So then if I go and open up that, it gives you this report of the sort of measurement that you made, which is cool. But yeah, you can also go from there and you can make a 2D plot, and you can snap it and then change it to that viewpoint and kind of zoom in and do stuff like that. So there's a lot of different things you can play around with in the 2D plot tool.
And it sounded like you guys have that taken another step further with a measurable PDF as well, right? Rather than just that PDF report, you can produce a measurable PDF of an ortho view or an image.
Correct. Yeah. The measurement PDF, I'd say, is probably the most popular method, because if you give it to someone and they want to make a measurement that you didn't already make, they could just do it themselves.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, much more adaptable, right? You don't have to predict everything that they want. You don't have to know it in advance. I like that. I really liked the imaging control that you guys have as well. The onboard image adjustments and face blurring and blurring of license plates automatically. Is that happening in the field? Is that happening in RISolve? Can you tell me where that's going on?
It's happening in both places. So on the scanner itself, you can enable it, and the scanner will blur the images before it actually saves them. So you have like no sort of issues with that. Or you can go into the software and just run the anomalized photos task here. And that task will automatically blur the images for you in post-processing too. And then there's some settings behind it. You can choose which images you want to blur or which scan position images you want to blur.
I think that's very cool, especially if you know you're scanning a site where things like that are sensitive ahead of time. It's not going to be in your raw data at all, right? It's not something that's
Yeah,
going to be passed
correct. Yeah,
down or has the potential for that.
yeah, and it varies from state to state. It's more. I know a lot of countries in Europe have laws against photographing people's faces and their license plates, so it's catered to like individual states and things like that have different restrictions.
And that Alcatraz project,
So
that's one of the. Go ahead, Bryan.
Oh no, you can finish your question. Sorry.
That Alcatraz project is one of the reasons to get into this career in the first place, right? Such a cool project. You want to talk some more about the planning that went into that and
Yeah, of
some of the
course.
teamwork you
So
had to do?
yeah, so the project took about, it was probably in planning for maybe like 2 months. There's a gentleman named Pete Kelsey who owns a editing company called VCTO Labs that was by the National Park Service to organize this. It was all for nonprofit, so it was all no one actually was paid to do this. This was just something that he gathered and sort of, it was a super cool project. So a lot of different companies wanted to be a part of it, and we all just jumped on board. No money exchanged hands or anything like that. But yeah, Pete was there, organizing it with the park rangers was fun. Getting all that stuff done. The weather was sometimes crazy, sometimes it wasn't. It was an experience, but yeah, that's why we get into this, for the cool projects, the places that it'll take you to sometimes, and some of the opportunities you'll get to scan something that is sick, right?
Yeah, pretty amazing. And you're right about San Francisco weather, right? It's definitely unpredictable. No ghosts, huh?
Yeah,
Didn't run into any at night.
for sure. No, you can the only real thing that was kind of creepy is you could actually hear the little like rats and the mice kind of like scurrying around at night,
Sure.
which is a little not ideal, but not that I saw. I'm sure there were a few though.
So
I had a question. Sorry.
Go ahead. Go.
I had a question from Ken Chase in the audience, that if I had a data set with the external cameras from the 600i. So for the audience, the 600i has the option for an external camera that you can mount on the system. It's a 61 megapixel Sony camera, which is just a really high definition camera. And I do have a project that I can show that I used the external camera to scan. I'm going to try and find something here that I have. So Ken, this project was taken with the external cameras. It's in Long Beach, California. It's not really a forensics or public safety project. We were just trying to model this building. We did a few long range scans from this apartment building looking out, but you can see kind of once this loads up, this is sort of the quality you would expect from the external cameras as far as the images go. This project was about 60 scans, probably an hour of scanning to collect all of this. So we kind of went through the roof here of this building and then also the outside and collected all that data. And this intersection might look familiar to you if you earlier in the sort of PowerPoint, I shared a view type window from this exact intersection here. So this is where I got that screenshot from. Yeah, this is the project using the external cameras, and I can send it to you, Ken, because I know you have the Regal software already, so you can open this up. So I'll send you a link with this project so you can check it out. And sorry, Will, you had asked something that I cut you off on. Sorry, Will, did you have a question? Sorry, right before I answered Ken's, I think you were saying something.
Nope, that's fine. Go ahead and prioritize the webinar participants before me.
No, you can go ahead and finish it. Tackle the next question.
That brings up something. You guys have really dense data, not just dense in collection, but there's a lot of metadata involved in it. I'm interested in how you feel that helps law enforcement, right, or helps the clarity of your data, helps you guys produce better deliverables.
Sure, I'll show you kind of a little bit of what's going on here. So let me do this. So we have this info window that allows you to see all of the different data, that's all the different attributes that we're saving. So if I zoom in really, really close to a data point here and sort of like make it bigger and zoom in, I can see the individual points that are being collected. If I hold I on my keyboard and click on a data point, it'll show me all of the different attributes that we're saving along with just the amplitude. So we're saving amplitude, we're saving reflectance, we're saving timestamp, the XYZ position and polar coordinates, and XYZ, coin ID. There's a ton of stuff here, but you can actually, there's actually more here because this is a subsampled point cloud. So if I go and I open up a single scan position, a single raw scan position, and then I go and I use this info window and I click on a single point, now I can see all of the attributes to that point, including the deviation and stuff like that. So all of these different attributes we can filter by. So let's give you a visual of that. So if I go into this point attribute filter, and I'm just going to keep looking at this building face here. And I go into the point attribute filter, and right now I can filter by reflectivity, let's say. So I'm filtering out by this value. It says that those points that point has a reflectance of negative 8.4. So if I go here and I change my negative bound to negative 8.4, you'll actually, if you keep an eye on the data, you'll see that the data starts to disappear. Because now I'm starting to filter out points by reflectivity. And you can start to see, like, if I start to get really low, you just start to see kind of everything disappear. And I can do that with all the different attributes that are available. So if I go through it and see the scroll window here, there's a whole ton of attributes that you can filter your data by just to get a very particular view of something. So we really try to empower the user to be able to kind of play around with this and do whatever they want to do. So this is, and then you mentioned super dense data. So the scanner is doing about 2.2 million points per second. So just one scan, you get really a pretty dense collection here along this object.
Yeah, I like it. You can go down the rabbit hole with this stuff, right? But that's what makes it possible to do so many different things. Is having that data in the background. Gives us the ability to classify, gives us the ability to get faster results, cleaner results. I love it.
Thank you. I think so. I don't have any more questions from the audience, and any more questions from. If anyone has any questions, now would be the time to sort of send them in. I think we had until 10 a.m. my time. I think like 1 p.m. No, I'm sorry. Yeah, 1 p.m. Eastern. So we're coming up. We got 4 minutes left. So unless anyone has any more questions, I think we can go ahead and wrap up the webinar.
Thank you again, Bryan, for doing this for IFSM and highlighting RIEGL. We want to thank you and RIEGL both for this event.
And well, thanks for
Very much
joining in too.
Very much appreciate you plugging our conferences, and I know I'll see you there, but I hope to see everyone that's here on the webinar and everybody who's going to see it in the future in the recorded versions. So again, we will be in Los Angeles at the Backlots in Universal for the MCI Law Enforcement Conference, offering our basic laser scanner certification class on Monday, August 18th, and then that conference runs all the way through the 22nd. And then we have a joint conference with Acer in Boulder in February of next year. You can find all those things either at our website, ifsm.org, or at acsr.org. Thank you, everybody, for attending, and look forward to seeing you at those conferences, Bryan.